Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This is going to be my new Star Wars Rise of Skywalker video for The Mandalorian and Baby Yoda. I got a lot of questions about them during my Rise of Skywalker videos, so we'll break it down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. We're doing a merch giveaway because they finally have Baby Yoda merch on sale. All you have to do to enter that is be a subscriber and leave your favorite moment from The Mandalorian or Rise of Skywalker on the video. Obviously, careful for spoilers from Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker as well as the Mandalorian series. You really have to know what's going on with Baby Yoda during the events of that series and what they're trying to set up with that plot to understand what's going on later in the timeline. Because if you're not sure what's happening and when it's happening in the timeline, the Mandalorian series takes place 5 years after Return of the Jedi. The events of the new trilogy start about 30 years after Return of the Jedi. So you have to assume if Baby Yoda is around 50 years old, as they said during Season 1 of The Mandalorian, he'd be between 75 and 78 around the time Rise of Skywalker is happening. The Mandalorian is quite a bit younger than Baby Yoda, though, because he was around 7 or 8 during the events of the Clone Wars, because you see the giant separatist battle droids come and kill his parents. So during the events of the new trilogy, the Mandalorian would be in his late 60s, early 70s. Just for the sake of comparison, though, Han Solo is about 66 during the events of Force Awakens. He looks way older than that just because he's got a lot of city miles on him, and Harrison Ford is 73 when they're filming that. And they didn't use any of Marvel's special de-aging technology that they do in the Marvel movies, making the older actors look quite a bit younger. They did it for Carrie Fisher just a little bit, but Luke Skywalker is about 53, 54 during the events of Last Jedi. He also looks a lot older because in real life, Mark Hamill was 66 when they filmed that, and they also didn't use any special de-aging technology for him. So even though the Mandalorian himself, underneath that helmet, Pedro Pascal's character, would be pretty old, he wouldn't be extremely old. Baby Yoda has already shown us he's super powerful. He's been able to force choke people, exhibiting some Sith powers. He's been able to levitate the Mudhorn. He's been able to force heal people, which is also a power that we saw Rey use for the first time during Rise of Skywalker, which previously used to be like a god-tier Legends ability. So if Baby Yoda is this powerful, why wouldn't he be around at the age of 75, quite a bit older, quite a bit more powerful, and physically just have grown a little bit more so he's actually physically larger in size? Typical humanoid children that you see during the prequels when Yoda is training all those younglings are between the ages of 7 and 8 when they start training. So if Yoda's race matures at about the same rate that humans do comparatively, by the time he's 70, 75, almost 80 years old, he would definitely be ready to start formal Jedi training. And because members of Yoda's race are always born so innately powerful in the Force and so Force sensitive, he would probably be as powerful, if not way more powerful, than Anakin Skywalker was around the time of Attack of the Clones, after he'd had a little bit of Jedi training under him. Some of the abilities we've seen Baby Yoda use are abilities that you've only seen previously from adult Jedi and Sith, so you have to assume that he's way more advanced, way more powerful than any of the Jedi you've seen before. We don't hear any mention of him during Rise of Skywalker. Emperor Palpatine doesn't talk about trying to track down any of the other Force-sensitive people around the galaxy. He's only focused on tricking Rey into killing him in hatred so that she will fully become Sith and his Force spirit can enter her body. And hopefully, I think the idea is that he wants to take over her body and then he can rule the galaxy through her form. But there's this whole subplot on The Mandalorian right now about the Empire, the remnants of the Empire through Moff Gideon's character and all the territory that he controls and troops, using Baby Yoda to re-establish Imperial dominance in the wake of the fall of the Empire and Return of the Jedi. So there's a lot of missing timeline. If they knew about him then, and he's such this topic of interest for the former Empire, then why isn't the First Order looking for him? Why isn't Emperor Palpatine talking about him? We're really still just in Season 1 of the Mandalorian series, so we're only just learning about the other remnants of the Empire. We just met Moff Gideon, so we don't know who else is working with him besides Dr. Purging in the cloning facility at Kamino. There was this whole subplot during Rise of Skywalker about Emperor Palpatine saying that he'd been cloning Snoke this whole time, so using Sith techniques, he's already been doing a measure of what it seems like Moff Gideon is trying to do with Baby Yoda. Create a new army of Force-sensitive clones, or at least use some of his DNA to create humanoid clones that are then Force-sensitive and live way longer and are way more powerful and easily controllable. But if The Mandalorian runs 4 or 5 seasons, obviously this is just the beginning of what their plans for Baby Yoda are. But I like to think that Star Wars, at least in the end, tries to be as optimistic as possible, even though they kind of drag some people through the mud on the way there. George Lucas is so utterly protective of the way new Star Wars stories use the Yoda character in Yoda's race that I don't think he would allow Dave Filoni, his surrogate son, and Jon Favreau to create a new member of his race only to then kill him off really quickly. The whole concept of his race is that they represent one of the truest connections to the Force on a biological and spiritual level, the whole metaphor being that the smallest, tiniest creatures are somehow the most innately powerful. So for the sake of argument, let us assume that Baby Yoda is still alive and well during the events of the new trilogy. He's probably just still in the Outer Rim territories living with the Mandalorian, who is much older now, who since the events of Season 1 has officially become his surrogate father in a more official capacity, and they also have slowly been working to restore the Mandalorian people along with the other people in the Mandalorian clan, in addition to eventually restoring Yoda's race. But those are really, really long-term goals. Remember how rare it is for members of Yoda's race to be born in the galaxy. At any given time, there's really only one or two, like Yaddle is the only other one that we see during the prequels, and she actually left after Phantom Menace. I think the best explanation for why Baby Yoda isn't around during the events of the new trilogy or during Rise of Skywalker at all, why he's never mentioned by any of the characters, is mostly that he's here on the other side of the galaxy in the Outer Rim. Like, remember, we saw them go to Tatooine. Tatooine is on the exact opposite side of the galaxy from where Palpatine is on Exegol in the unknown regions. We don't know exactly where that planet is, we just know it's in the unknown regions, and that's this part of space way up here. The reason why the First Order probably isn't trying to hunt him down or Emperor Palpatine isn't trying to find Baby Yoda is probably because the only people who knew of his existence during the events of the Mandalorian series were Moff Gideon's men in his inner circle. And since then, they've all either been killed off by the Mandalorian trying to protect Baby Yoda, or at some point during the Mandalorian series, they switched sides and tried to help him, like Dr. Pershing seems like he's going to eventually help them. And through their actions, they're probably able to either erase all records of Baby Yoda, at least all Imperial records, or silence all the people that would eventually seek to do him harm. So that for the most part, he literally and metaphorically flies under the radar as he continues to grow up living with the Mandalorian under his protection. You also have to assume that they were creating the series and thinking about creating the character while they were actually filming and working on Rise of Skywalker, so it was probably too late in the game to actually stuff him in, and because they spent so much time trying to keep a lid on the secret of Baby Yoda being introduced in the Mandalorian series, there's no merchandise, they didn't put him in any of the marketing, so they probably wanted to keep him out of Rise of Skywalker on purpose just to help keep the secret. But I think the idea is, presumably, after the events of the Rise of Skywalker ending scene where Rey buries Luke and Leia's lightsabers and then names herself a Skywalker, she sets out on the task of finding other Force-sensitive beings around the galaxy and creating a new Jedi temple with the help of the Jedi texts, which she's kept. Finn is a really good example of a new Force-sensitive person now confirmed by the filmmakers and by John Boyega himself. He would probably wind up being one of her first Padawans, and no idea where Broom Boy was when this was all happening, or if Finn even noticed that he was Force-sensitive when they were on Canto Bight. But the whole idea of the new trilogy is that there are all these Force-sensitive people out there all over the place, and it's just on Rey to spend the rest of her life finding them and rebuilding the Jedi Order. And eventually, at some point, Baby Yoda would cross paths with her, they would sense each other through the Force across the galaxy. And keep in mind, even if he waited a couple years after the events of Rise of Skywalker, he would be rounding out age 80 by the time that happened. Eventually, he would have to find someone else to help take care of Baby Yoda if he was not already able to take care of himself. So if you're still a little confused about what's going on, there is no Baby Yoda or Mandalorian during Rise of Skywalker anywhere. There is a minor Easter egg in the background of this giant fleet when all the ships come to fight on Exegol. You see all these different types of ships in the background. There is a ship right here that looks like the same configuration as the Mandalorian's Razor Crest ship. I think it's safer to assume that Baby Yoda will eventually show up in the movies set after the events of Rise of Skywalker. Everyone post your theories in the comments below. Where is Baby Yoda hiding out during the events of the new trilogy? The Mandalorian Episode 8 finale is going to be on Friday. Of course, I'll post my video for that. I'll be doing more Mandalorian bonus videos for Season 2 and all that stuff because they are about halfway done filming Season 2 right now. Congratulations, Alex Ramirez. You're the giveaway winner from my last big Star Wars video. Please email me on the About page of my channel so I can get your details. Everyone, click here for my brand new Mandalorian Episode 7 video. And click here for my Star Wars Rise of Skywalker Top 20 WTF video. Thank you so much for watching. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas everyone. I'll see you guys tonight.